So now, everybody ready?
Yeah, I think we're ready.
All right. Well, good afternoon. My name is Sean Grose, and some of y'all might recognize me and my wife and daughter from Waverly's downtown. We have a kind of unique approach at life, and typically you're going to be taught get a degree, get a job that has to do with that degree, get married, and live the American dream. But really, that's kind of a default American dream. What it is and why you're here, hopefully some of y'all are getting degrees in some things that you're passionate about. And that way you can find what you love and find ways to make money doing what you love, so that there's no separation between what you do for fun and what you call employment or work. Today I've been asked to be here because it's National Library Awareness Appreciation Week. And how many of y'all use this library on a regular occasion? Raise your hand. Okay. Those of you who didn't, you need to a little bit more. It's like YouTube, except you don't have to filter through as much stuff, and you get to read it. Any big reading fans in here? You enjoy reading? Okay. So we've got some writers, some readers, some people just here for the prize. And then some employees who are just killing time. So I've been asked to be here, I think because in part on the side I write. I write by compulsion. It's something I've done since I was a young kid, and it's just kept a journal, and I write. A few different ways that I write. This is the inspirational yellow pad. Yellow is psychologically proven to be more inspiring of a color than just white paper. I've always kept big journals, and that I sketch in, that I draw things out, that I dream in, and you can tell they take a beating over time. I fill one up and I go to the next one, and the biggest benefit in that, it comes back to what words are. What are words? Any ideas?
Words to convey meaning.
Words to convey meaning, yes. There's something, there's an idea, a concept. And a word is just a symbol of that concept. So when I say brick, you're all of a sudden, it goes from your ears to your brain. You understand that word. It goes through this corridor of neurons and memories that tie to this little thing called brick. Now, that's a little simpler one. What if I said the word first kiss? All of a sudden, some of y'all are going back to middle school. Some of y'all are just kind of looping around saying, what's that? No. And some of y'all go back to good memories. Some of y'all go back to bad memories. So it's going down these different paths for each of us. So words are symbols attached to some meaning. And you know, the second law of thermodynamics in the universe, in the cosmos, is that you don't get order from chaos. You have order that turns into chaos. Now here's the thing. If you follow the strand of the creation of Earth, life, humans, and even our ability to communicate, it defies the second law of thermodynamics, making it not so much of a law anymore, is it? Because we can actually create order out of our communication, out of our experiences shared with each other. Now, how many of y'all have grown up in Cisco, you've never left town? Good. Hopefully, in those experiences, if you leave town, your eyes are opened a little bit wider, right? Now, how many of y'all have gone out of country? Anybody? And when you go out of country, you realize that there's a whole different culture, and all of a sudden you're out of your comfort zone, right? You have a little bit better view of what the world is. Now, a big part of why reading and sharing ideas and listening to ideas, especially ones that are different than y'all's, I mean, you are each little tiles on a mosaic. Y'all familiar with mosaics? Where it's just little tiles that all are different colors and they make up a bigger picture. Well, what is reality? Is it not like a human reality just made up of all of our different experiences? We are just one tile in this large picture of what's going on. You ever watch the news and say, man, what is wrong with the world? If you could zoom out far enough, you could see patterns. You could see areas in your life where you don't need to stress about it. You might even see areas in your life where you might need to stress a little bit more. But zooming out tends to give you that bird's eye view, and zoom out even more and you end up with almost a God's eye view, which is impossible, but if you strive for it, at least you'll get as high as you can get. So communication is our way of separating ourselves from ants. Now, many of us do communicate like ants. We come up to each other and we go like this, and then you told me where the sugar is, and so I follow this way, leaving a little chemical trail so that we can follow each other and just feed ourselves and survive so that we can die and pass it on to the next generation of workers. But life is so much more than that. We have dreams, we have hopes, we have aspirations. It's not just meaningless interactions. There's this idea that you have this grand potential to living a dream. You have this purpose in life to fulfill who you are, to break negative cycles of generations, to create positive cycles in generations, to make the world a better place. Well, you can go at it as hard as you can, the best way you know how, or you can zoom out and learn what's going on and see where you plug in. Now, the first real book that I wrote was, people kept asking us for our recipes at the coffee shop, so I wrote down all our recipes and it was 8 pages. So I had to give them something else. Another question people kept asking is, how did y'all end up in Cisco? And if y'all remember, if y'all were here 5 years ago, the street was all torn up. There were maybe 3 businesses downtown. And it's kind of a different place now, but people say, why Cisco? And it's a bigger story of how God is still working through individuals, in individuals' lives. And you read the Bible and you say, it's just miracles that I don't see anymore. But if you look for them, they're there. And if you submit to them, they happen. I mean, if you allow the possibility to happen, it does. Anyway, that was the first thing I wrote. And I mean, first of all, it's a way of saying, this is my mosaic tile. And by other people reading it, they understand kind of where we fit in, and also helps them understand, hopefully, how they fit in. We went through a terrible loss of a daughter. This is Ilea, our first daughter, and Waverly was our second daughter. It was very therapeutic for me to write it. But at the same time, I've gotten a lot of feedback from people saying, you helped me deal with my issue that I was going through. I just lost a husband. Your book comforted me. It's sharing an experience so that we don't feel crazy. It's realizing that other people aren't Facebook perfect too. Let's say there's a married couple who are going through an issue of tough times, and they write about it. Another couple reads about it and they say, we're not the only ones. Something comforting about that. And not just to say we're not the only ones, but also to share ideas of how to rise above it. If some of y'all are writers, and this kind of goes into I got an English degree from TCU, not a cheap school. I took out loans. One of my dreams is, at some time while I'm still alive, to pay off my English degree with writing. And so with the modern world, you can self-publish. Now, I've done this one. I've got another book, a little kid's book in the mail right now. I've got 2 writing prompt books, 100 writing prompts for the thoughtful thinker. If you like thinking deep, but you don't know you need prompts to write, well, this is prompts and space to write. And usually it's just a blank notebook, and you're like, what do I write? Or it's a book full of prompts, and you're like, where do I write? And then 100 writing prompts for the teenage Christian. I'm also working on America's next great American novel. And I'm still in the editing stage, but why? For me, writing is a compulsion. It's like an infection if I don't write. And so I have to write. And I start thinking about that book. I've set it aside for 6 months, but it's been coming up more and more, and I get anxious and if I don't get it out. Now here's the thing. Any of y'all still know what records are? Those little things that spin around with a needle on it? Okay, DJs use them to make the wiki sound. If a record is scratched, it keeps playing the same line over and over. I have this theory, and maybe it's just me, but maybe y'all are like this too. But you have thoughts that continually cycle around in your head. Do you recognize that? Like maybe the same worries cycle around in your head. Maybe it's just the same situation that plays over in your head. I know a 50-year-old guy who's still talking about his high school football days. You know, he'll retell the high school football game of his career every time I see him. We have these broken records in our head. And the only way I've found to stop the record and have new thoughts is to write them down. Now, that allows you to not just go in circles, because everything's a cyclical pattern. The circle is 3D, two-dimensional, right? But I think we as humans are created to have our lives elevate towards the heavens as we live. And so even though we're crossing the same point in our lives, Happy New Year again and again, there's this third dimension to it where each year we're supposed to be a little higher than we were the last. So we're over the same point, but we're not at the same point. We are improving at life as we go along. And a lot of times, it takes just writing stuff down. Welcome.
Hello.
Are you a writer?
No.
Do you write?
A little bit. But.
See, that's a funny distinction, because I'm the same way. I write out of compulsion, and it's therapeutic, and it helps think new thoughts. If I'm angry, and I write it down, and then I read it, I go, oh, that's kind of silly. And stupid words, sentences, phrases, and even probably horrible stories and books in us. But hidden in between them are gems of genius. So how are you going to get to the gems of genius if you don't spit out all the bad stuff first? It's like Ansel Adams with photography, one of the world's leading photographers in developing the genre. He said, for every 1,000 pictures I take, maybe I'll have one good one. And so with writing, don't worry about being good or not, just get it out. And as you come back to it or you get into that flow, the goodness, the genius comes out. You know, why does this matter? Yeah, you might be able to pay off a loan or something. Yeah, it might be therapeutic. And yeah, if it's a goal of yours to write a book, then you've reached that goal maybe. But that doesn't necessarily mean, again, it's good or it's credible. Or I'm here to tell you, if you haven't been told lately that words matter, grammar matters. Capitalization and punctuation matters. Even though this book is self-published, it's been edited, revised professionally, and there are no capitalization errors. If you came up in this high-class library of yours and you took a book off the shelf and you saw run-on sentences, lack of commas, overuse of capitalizing words that don't need to be capitalized, how credible is that book? All of a sudden, you as a reader, aren't you like, I'm smarter than this person. How am I going to learn something from them? So if you are a student, let me encourage you that spelling, capitalization, punctuation, they matter. Not just in the book writing, journal writing, poetry writing, but in everyday life. We were teachers in public education. We left that to intentionally be a family and raise our daughter. In a little coffee shop that we couldn't afford to open. So we went to the Cisco development board, and they said, we can help you, just write up a proposal. They get tons of proposals every day. What separates, first impressions make a big difference. They gave us $20,000 to put in heating, electric, and plumbing. If they wouldn't have given us that, there would be no Waverly's. But on first impression, when they take it and throw it away, or take it and say, this might have credibility, what are the things that separate those two? First glance, capitalization, punctuation, and grammar. On second glance, it's your ability to communicate. So in a sense, English degree from TCU, a guy running a coffee shop with an English degree, well, maybe the coffee shop wouldn't have been possible without being told the importance of the ability to communicate. How many of y'all have ever written a resume? Have any of y'all ever turned one in at Waverly's? All right, if it's got spelling, capitalization, and punctuation errors, I throw it away. Sorry. If you can't pay attention to the basics, guess what 99% of making good food and good drinks is? Paying attention to the basics. Keep it simple, do it well. So this whole language thing, this whole writing, reading, it's all about bettering ourselves. And it's not just getting a degree. It's being able to tell that person who's holding you down, who might be verbally or physically abusive or just kind of controlling to you, being able to summarize in one sentence what it is. And being able, without emotion or anything, but just with clear thought, this way you're treating me, it's not right because of this. I want to be above that. See you later. Right? But how many times have you been in a horrible relationship and you don't know what to say, how to say it, or communicate it, and you've never written it down or anything, and you're stuck in it? Or let's say it's the job situation, or let's say it's the life situation, income situation. Maybe it's a professor that you're not getting along with, or someone on your team, or a coworker. The ability to communicate is what separates the living from the sleepwalking, from the broken records to the ones making the music. So, I don't know how long you want me to talk, but I'm willing to answer some questions if you have them. I hope that from this you get the idea, or at least you're not told something new, but you're reminded that language matters, that words matter, and that rising above is part of our nature of being created, and it's all tied together. So whether you're a writer, a reader, you work for the library and are surrounded by books, whether you're a student who've used these books or not, it all matters. And you know what? Maybe you'll meet the person of your dreams in a library. So we met going back to school. So in a sense, centered around the education aspect of it. So anyway, that's the basics of who I am, what I do, and I'd like to answer any questions y'all might have.
How much time every day do you spend writing or jotting your thoughts down?
I wish I was disciplined to do it every day. It's more that when I get either the need to write that I get it out, or when I have some ideas, I want to write them down. So I generally have a pen on me, behind my ear, in my cap, or in my pocket, because you never know when a good thought is going to come along. It's like you're sitting at a dock and a fish swims by. You don't say, wait, let me go home and get my pole. Good thought's coming by. I want to catch it. So, just as an example, this morning I was thinking about a girl we're close to, and she was told to water on a duck's back, the pain. Hard to do when you're wearing what you got like a clothes rack in the rain. The moments fumed like lacquer and dissipated. And it's not complete, but there's something, I had a thought, I had a feeling, and I wanted to capture it. Words are fun, poetry's fun. When I'm working on a book, I try to write 1,500 to 2,000 words a day. That way it gets done in a matter of weeks and not a matter of years. But usually, if you can get out a page worth, I mean, it's, how many of y'all's professors have write a paper of 2 to 4 pages? Yeah? Okay, or 4 to 6 pages, or do they just say write a paper, make it good? So if you're writing for yourself, just get it all out. It's like bleed until it clots, write until it stops. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When you have like a good groove going in your writing, at some point you do have to stop and rest. Okay, so what happens that next time you get back on there and your emotions are completely different?
That's a good question, and usually it's just the process of do it first, go back to it later. When I go back, if I've got 2,000 words one day and I'm exhausted for a week, and now I'm tired and I'm in a bad mood and I'm coming back to it, but I have time and I have some things, yeah, the tone of it's going to change. But if I don't write, it's not written. So your first draft you got to know that your first draft, you're going to butcher it. So this next great American novel of mine, I wrote it and then I tried to make my wife read it and she wouldn't. She's like, I can't get past, I love you. And I just want to say, yeah, I know it's bad, but read it. It's got a really good ending. It's like pulling teeth, right? And that's where you just got to write it. So the tone's going to change, so what? Your first draft isn't your final draft. When you're writing, when you go back and read it as a whole, all the way through, you just make notes. You don't change it, just make notes. Tone shift. And when you come back to work on it, you'll iron out those kinks. But if you're not writing, nothing's written. And you just got to get it out. I had one professor tell me one time, writing is like throwing up. You gotta get it out, and then you can pick out the good pieces of meat and put those back in. His words, but I remembered it. You know, writing is like that. And that's the number one thing, is you want to self-edit as you go. No, get it out. Get it out. Edit later. Get it out.
I have kind of like a two-part question. Have you ever just been completely into this thought or this idea that you wanted to write about, and you were like in the zone, you were feeling the muse and everything, but as time went on, you just kind of lost interest in it? And if so, did you keep it and just come back to it later, or did you just chuck it?
Good ideas are good ideas. You might lose interest in them, but I have one book in the back of my mind about called The Queen's Bed, and it's about 5 different personality types from 5 different backgrounds that win a night to sleep in the Queen's bed, and be treated like the Queen. And so one of them is just so unfamiliar with that lifestyle, she just can't, and she sleeps on the floor. And another one just loves it and hates her old life, and another one's like she's on vacation. Yeah, cool little thought experiment with 5 different personality types being treated like royalty. I don't want to write it. I got other things I'm working on. It's just in the back of my head. Guess what? It might always be. So what do you do with it? Just, if it's in a journal, sometimes you can go back to it, and sometimes you come across it, and you're coming across it with fresh eyes. You say, I know something better I can do with it. But if you don't write it down, you might forget it. Who knows, it might be the next great American novel. Or who knows, it might pay off your college degree. Or it might just be spending money. I tell you, just by having this on Amazon and having this at our store, don't think of this as bragging or anything. I just want to be transparent. We've made over $1,000 just from me writing down a little book. And so that's cool. That allowed us to go on a vacation. You know, so maybe eventually it will pay off a debt. But anyways, so hold on to the idea. You never know which one is going to be the good one, but at least it's written down. At least it's kind of developing in your head. And with our little daughter, just this little family, to move into this little town and open a business which is known for small profit. It's like, it makes no sense, but that explains it. And there's a song that has expressed it well. How did they say it? I'm rich, but I ain't got no money. But I have the richest relationship with my wife and daughter that people who have rich money might not ever have. And that's just, if I die tomorrow, I'm happy. So.
I like that. Thank you. Your other book, one of the girls I was going to school with went and bought it, and I haven't got to read it or anything, but is it about y'all's life and y'all's daughter?
Yes, this one it was the first one published. I'm a beginning writer, but I know that I'm supposed to be a writer, or at least I know that I'm supposed to be writing. Whether or not it does anything, it's enjoyable. Like I said, you might hate writing, you might love reading. Well, guess what? You might be able to find a career reading and getting paid for it. There are people that get that. I know a few people who blog for a living, and it pays more than a lot of people think if it's interesting, if you can capitalize and punctuate. Yeah, it's a simple read. I don't claim that it's not hopefully overwhelmingly about us, but more about a larger reality that we all are a part of.
What is your next great American novel about?
All right, that's this one. It's been sitting in my head for 10 years. And finally last spring I told Cassidy I'm driving to Montana. She's like, what? Gotta drive to Montana. First line of the book is, you can't find happiness under a rock in Montana, my teacher told me. In fact, it's the only place I ever have. And so that's the first line. And so I had to pretend like I was an 18-year-old boy in the mindset who's just fed up with life. His granddad just died. He's dealing with all this stuff. And he just gets in his car. His teacher tells him that. And so he gets in the car and just drives to Montana. And so I document kind of what I feel the thought process. Kind of what happens when you have to turn the radio off. You know, how long can you really listen to the music before you turn it off? What happens when you actually have to come face to face with your thoughts? What happens when you have to come face to face with, just all of the symbols around you? And all the symbols kind of come to a huge tying together at the end where he actually does sit on this cliff. And I actually did sit on this cliff and overlook all of the metaphors of the drive and everything tied together beautifully and perfectly. And the whole time, everywhere you go in the United States, you'll see vultures, which are, looming, looking for death. So it's a story of an 18-year-old finding his mind, finding his heart, and kind of dealing with that difficult topic of what is death and what do I do with it. So it's a story of a drive to Montana, and it can be boring at times, but that's part of the point, is that on the back it'll talk about how just get to the end. No, it's in the editing process. So, but it's my life dreams to write that book. If I stop there, I'm happy. Well, I guess whatever. You like that, how I communicated nothing by stopping one sentence and saying whatever? Practice what you preach, right? Anybody else?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I got this from a few people before we actually had this. You said that you were self-published.
Yes.
What was kind of like the general route that you took to do that?
Well, you Google.
Google?
And you read. And if you're making a decision that you can't go backwards on, once you have a barcode, an ISBN, it's registered, you can't change it. I guess you could sue yourself for publishing under the same title, but it's unprofessional too. Amazon actually has a publishing thing called Create Space, and the marketing's all there. It lays out. You can publish anything. In fact, it's something like 3 books a minute are being published. So do I think my books are really going to become national bestsellers? No, because it's not about quality of writing, it's about who you know and networking and all that, and I'm not playing that game. But the ability for someone to publish and distribute locally or even regionally is there. Now, the thing is, because everybody can self-publish, there's a lot of bad stuff out there. And so, don't focus on being good on your first draft. Remember, throw it up. But on your editing, don't just go back and say, I wrote it, it was tough, I'm publishing it, I'm getting it out there, and we'll see what happens. It's like picking up a rock and saying, let's see if it flies. You know? No, it's not. But in fact, there have been some book gatherings where there are these self-published networks of people that come together and they have their books and they give them away, and I just flip through and I look for capitalization, spelling, and punctuation. If I don't have it, I might not give it back to them there, but it's not going to be read. It's just, sorry, and I don't think I'm the only one like that. I think that's just the way it is. So kind of answer, just go on to Google, say,
yeah.
how do you self-publish? Create Space is the one I use. I like it. You got to be a little bit good at computers. If not, you can hire professionals for starting at $200 and they'll format everything for you. You can get into the whole online marketing, networking, and all that if you want. So, I mean, how many people live in America? 300 million? 450 million?
A lot.
Let's say there are 300 million. If you can buy if you can have 1% of the population buy your product, that's $3 million if you sell it for $1 profit a piece. Just to think about it. I mean, if you've got a brilliant idea, I want to buy your brilliant idea. I want to read what you got to say if you're going to inspire me. And is there anybody out there that really would be interested? I want to give these away too. Just 100 writing prompts for the teenage Christian or the thoughtful thinker.
I'd like the blue one.
Which one would you like?
The blue one.
Blue one? You got it.
Thank you, sir.
It's been a while since I've been to school.
Maybe she needs one also. She's actually written
Now, do you plan on self-publishing your next book?
I don't know. One of my dreams is to see if I can, is to get out there and see if I can get an actual publisher to pick it up. Because if you have one good publishing company that picks you up, that's credibility. All of a sudden, then you can self-publish, and you've got, the publisher is huge credibility. So I just like throwing it out there to see. But I'm especially the story of Waverly's. That's not a story to get rich off of. That's just a story of life that I want to share with people I love, or I'm close to, or connected to, as far as the community, or things along those lines. Okay, and you said when you needed a book?
Yes. I
Yeah,
think
one
she,
of Clarice.
oh, Clarice wants one
Clarice,
also.
okay. There you go. All right. Well, thank y'all. And give yourselves a round of applause for listening to me talk for a little while.